Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Peter Dutton warns China will expand its presence in Pacific after Solomon Islands Pact. Defense Minister Peter Dutton is warning China will not waste any time expanding its presence in the South Pacific, after signing its controversial security pact with Solomon Islands. Peter Dutton says he expects China will do all it can now it has signed the security agreement with Solomon Islands. The deal between the governments in Beijing and Honiara has sent shock waves across the Pacific, with fears the move will allow China to base military assets in the region. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said his Solomon Islands counterpart, Manasseh Sogavare, has insisted no Chinese military bases would be built in his country. However, that has not dampened concerns that China could use existing infrastructure for refuelling and replenishment to support its operations in the South Pacific. A leaked draft of the agreement from last month showed that Beijing could be allowed to deploy forces to protect the safety of Chinese personnel and major projects in Solomon Islands, and make ship visits, to carry out logistical replenishment in, and have stopover and transition in, Solomon Islands. Mr Dutton dismissed suggestions from some analysts that China could start to move before the Australian federal election on May 21, saying the claims were not based on intelligence. However, he did concede that he expected Beijing to start shifting its focus soon, citing its recent history. "You can expect the Chinese to do all they can now that they got this agreement signed," Mr Dutton told Sky News. President Xi looked President Obama in the eye and said that the 20 points of reclaimed islands on the South China Sea would not be militarized. Today they are militarized. Read more. Mr Dutton's reference was to a meeting between the Chinese and US presidents in 2015, where Xi Jinping gave assurances that his administration would not be looking to build military bases in the South China Sea. The coalition has fended off accusations from Labour that it has woefully mismanaged the situation developing on its doorstep. Yesterday, Shadow Foreign Minister Penny Wong described the signing of the pact as the greatest Australian foreign policy blunder in the Pacific in almost 80 years. However, Mr Dutton suggested Australia's bargaining position was always going to be weaker than that of China, even though he avoided specifically answering questions on whether he thought Chinese money had been flowing into Solomon Islands in a bid to clinch the security deal. "China operates by very different rules than Australia does," he told Channel 7. "We've seen that in Africa. We've seen it in many other countries around the world. Australia is a respected partner with the Solomon Islands. We've provided support to them. We'll continue to do that, because they family, but we operate by a different set of rules." Election news, debate comment and outrageous slur. The controversial pact between Solomon Islands and China featured in Wednesday night's First Leaderess debate between Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese. During the debate, the opposition leader labelled a suggestion from the Prime Minister that Labour was siding with China on issues of national security as an outrageous slur. Senator Wong said Labour has been clear in its position on China, and recognised the increased aggression displayed towards Australia. One of Labour's central criticisms of the coalition's handling of the Solomon Islands deal is that the Prime Minister should have dispatched his Foreign Minister, Marise Payne, to Honiara to try to steer the government away from its partnership with Beijing, rather than send his more junior Minister for the Pacific, Zed Seselja. Mr Morrison said that was appropriate, given the sensitivities of the situation, and did not want to be seen as stomping all over Solomon Islands. Senator Wong said that claim was hypocritical. He was happy to tell them what to do when he pushed back on climate, Senator Wong said. He was happy to tell them what to do when he turned up to a Pacific Leaders Forum and pushed the leaders hard to take out reference to the climate crisis, which they wanted to put in. So Mr Morrison is very selective about when he wants to throw his weight around. Australia should be seen warning signs. The United States former ambassador to Solomon Islands said countries such as Australia should have seen China muscling into the Pacific on the horizon. Catherine Ebert Gray was Washington's envoy between 2016 and 2019. We probably should have been a little more prepared for this type of an agreement, she said. We've all been aware that China is interested in more defense activity and partnership, and they've come around to other Pacific nations. It was probably bound to happen somewhere, but it is interesting that Solomon Islands, just 2 years ago,